right, good evening. Welcome back to the show. My guest this evening is no stranger to the show. For some reason, he keeps coming back on, so I keep having him back on. And he's once again doing another Kickstarter. Um, Mike Spring, let me bring him in. Let's find out about him some more and what's been going on since we last chatted. How's it going, Mike?
Good, Chad. How are you?
I'm going and I'm doing fine. So
Good. Always
before we
pleasure.
get, yeah, I think the last time we chatted, it was for. I'm blanking, Uncaped,
Uncaped, yeah,
right?
probably. Yeah,
Yeah.
although I feel like we probably chatted at some point between now and then because I was a
Well, I
fan.
think
I mean,
I think
obviously,
you were. I think you guest hosted with me over on the Comic Watch.
that's right. That's right. That's right. Yep. You're right. You're right. So yeah, but yes, you're right. Last time
We
this,
talked to Kari.
right. Yeah. Was for Uncaped, which went very well, and now I'm back with my new Kickstarter for the 8-bit slasher. So yeah, I like to come in and spread the word a little, you know.
I see you've been making the rounds on the different shows, and so
Yeah, it's all about getting eyeballs on the campaign. It's hard to get people who don't frequent Kickstarter to look at things on Kickstarter, So like
Mhm.
really it's just about getting as many opportunities for visibility as I can. I'd love to be able to just be like, I'm just gonna go on one person's show and that's my exclusive, but I'm not quite famous enough to pull that off yet. If I was, Dwayne Johnson, I could probably pull that off, but I got a little ways to go still to get there.
Yeah. So I think the last time we actually met each other in person was probably at the when I was over at the Saratoga Comic Con and
Yep.
you were tabling.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
That
Yep.
was back in January or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
not long ago. Well, they do one in May and they do one in November. So I
It was
think,
probably November then.
yeah, yeah.
But so besides wrapping up the Uncaped, what else have you been up to?
Well, I mean, really focusing on the new book has been a big part of it. I'm still doing a lot of the things I always do my entertainment reviews, I do my film podcast and all of that. But as far as comics go, I've been doing, after Uncaped came out, I kind of have a nice cycle kind of going now where I usually do my Kickstarter early in the year. I get the books by late summer. And for me personally, because I'm in the Northeast, my busiest convention season is like fall. So like
Hmm.
August, September, October, and November are super busy for me. And I usually have the book come out right at the end of July, early August. So then what happens is I go hit up all my regular conventions. And so far every year I've had a new book to bring with me. So after I finished the campaign for Uncaped and published that, I did a bunch of big conventions. And so I got to introduce that book to a lot of people, moved a lot of copies of that. So that was kind of the focus for 5 or 6 months. And then kind of when the convention season wrapped up in like December, I had been working on 8-bit slasher behind the scenes, but now it was like, okay, let's kick this into overdrive, start prepping the Kickstarter, which I launched like a week and a half ago. And that's been kind of the focus. So it's kind of a cycle now. And I'll do the same thing with this book. Once the book comes out, I'll hit the cons for, 4 or 5 months, and then I'll start prepping the next book. So it's kind of good. Keeps me, I was about to say it keeps me regular, but that sounds bad. But it keeps me productive and working on a schedule, and always having something new to go to. So hopefully, if people are coming back and seeing me at a convention, if it's a once a year show, every time they come to my table, every year there'll be a new book for them to read, and I think that's important, so that people, because I've had people come up in the past and be like, "Oh, I already own all of this," and it's like, well, then I can't sell you anything because I'm out of books. So this way, it's
Right.
nice to have something new every time.
All right. Well, then let's talk about 8-bit slasher. First off, kind of give us the elevator pitch
Sure.
and the inspiration behind it.
Yeah. So the elevator pitch is the 8-bit slasher is about a famous movie slasher named Eddie Mayhem. He was in a bunch of movies in the 80s and 90s, and now they've made him into like a DLC character in a video game called 8-bit Brawler. And through some machinations that I will not reveal here, he gets sucked into the real world. And of course, as slashers will do, he goes on a killing spree. Now, the tricky part, though, is the video game world is bleeding into the real world with him. So not only do our group of teenagers have to survive a slasher killer, but they have to do so with all these rules and weird things happening, like unexpected levels and boss battles and power ups and henchmen and things like that they are not used to dealing with. So that's the story. It's a 48-page graphic novel. It's a complete story, start to finish, as I do with all my books now. And it's got a, it's slasher films meets video games with a good dose of humor in it. That's kind of the gist of it. As far as where the genesis for it came from, really a number of places. I wanted, I always like to do the things that I love. I had done 2 superhero books with Red, White, and Broken on Uncaped, and I wanted to branch out a little bit. And I know that like at the cons, horror is really popular. So I was like, do I want to do a horror book? Do I want to do this? And really the idea just sort of popped into my head. Like, I love old classic video games like, Nintendo, and like the arcade games like X-Men and Ninja Turtles from back in the day. Those big arcade cabinets, like 4 friends could play at the same time, and things like Mortal Kombat and stuff like that. And I love slasher movies, yeah. Be hit or miss with the horror genre, but I just love the good classic slashers, and I like good new slasher films. So I was like, light bulb. Let's see if I can put those 2 things together, and so that's really where it came from,
Now, this is just something I noticed is the slasher character. He kind of looks like, what were the inspirations for him? Because it kind of reminds me of the one character from DC, the Red X.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, I swear, ever since I created this character, like 17 other people have popped up with similar kinds of looks. You know what I mean? There's a Marvel literally introduced a character in a Daredevil spinoff book that had like a red X across their face, like literally like a week before, like a month or so before. Well, it was like literally like a month after I revealed the first designs on social media. And I'm not saying that Marvel ripped me off or anything like that, obviously. I'm just saying, like, I was just like, oh my gosh, are you serious? But basically what I wanted to do was,
that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, right. I wanted to kind of capture the classic slasher killer kind of look, right? I want it to be instantly recognizable so that people see it and go, I don't have to figure out who this character is. I get it by looking at him, right? So I went with kind of like a mask. It's not a hockey mask per se, but it's kind of like a white plastic mask. He's got like a black hoodie. And then it has kind of a red X across it. Now, originally, my idea was to do, I thought would be really cool, was to have it be a white mask, and then a new like slash would appear every time he killed somebody, like he was like keeping track. But then I also realized I did not want my artist to quit on me, because that would be a nightmare to draw. So I decided not to go with that. So I did the red X just to kind of set him apart from looking too much like Jason or Michael Myers. You know what I mean? Just something that kind of stands out visually. And then I've seen like 3 or 4 other characters in the last 2 months that have red X's on their face. And I'm like, you can't win sometimes. But yeah, I really just wanted him to be kind of like a very archetypal slasher. Like I said, so when people look at it, they go, I know what that is. I know who that character is. Like, I don't know who he is, but I know that person's going to kill people. Like, I don't have to like, what's his origin? How did he get this way? It's like, nope, I see that. I know he's killing teenagers. Done. You know what I mean? And that saves a lot of time, and it's story efficiency. You know what I mean? Like, you see him, you get it. You don't have to like go, what's his motivation? Doesn't matter. You know what I mean? He's a slasher. We all get it. It's the language we all speak,
Yeah. So besides in the book, besides the slasher, are there other characters to kind of? I would assume so. There has to be someone for him to slash.
Yeah, so it starts off at a college party. This is where he comes to life. Kids are playing video games, and there's a group of 6 teenagers who are friends, of one who's sort of like an outsider friend, who are all going to the party together. And so when he comes to life and attacks, they sort of run out together, and then it becomes like the typical kind of hunting, killing them off one by one type of thing. And I was pretty happy with. I was talking to my artist a couple days ago. And I was just kind of, we were going back and forth one of the pages, and he said to me, he goes, I was really surprised you killed so-and-so first. Like, I did not see that coming. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Like, if I can surprise my artist who's drawing the book, then I feel like that's pretty good, that I'll at least get a couple places where I'll surprise the readers. You know what I mean? So, ultimately it's a slasher book. It's not like it's, you're not gonna be able to figure out what's happening. But I think I tried to do things at least a little bit unique, so it's not just the same old tropes 100 times. I wanted to touch on some of the classic tropes, but also maybe subvert them a little bit. So we'll see if I succeeded or not, but I tried to have fun with it at the very least.
And so is this, again, this is a separate universe from all the other ones. It's Just
Correct. As always, there's one or two Easter eggs thrown in so that if you've read the other books, you'll kind of maybe catch an in joke here or there. But there is no, like he's not going to end up fighting Captain Stronghold or Lady Olympus, at least not yet. I don't have any plans for that. So if I think it'll make me money someday, I think people will buy the book. Maybe I'll write it because there's some fun ideas to that too. But right now, it is just a separate book. I just really want to do something. I love superheroes. I'm happy to write superheroes until I die. But I wanted to branch out because there are people out there who don't like superheroes, and I want to be able to appeal. I have so many ideas for stories that it's like I don't need to box myself in by just doing superheroes. I will always come back to superheroes. I plan to do sequels to Uncaped and Red, White, and Broke. But I have some other ideas I want to get to, and this was one that was really speaking to me, and that I was, I kept thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, that's gonna be my next book then. So yeah.
And the artist that you're working with, is this the same one that you've worked on your other projects?
It is actually. So Dennis Torona is my artist. He's worked on all three of my graphic novels so far. He did Red, White, and Broke, did Uncaped, and now he's done the 8-Bit Slasher. I'll be honest with you. I keep going back to him for a couple of reasons. One, I really, truly think he's one of the best artists working in independent comics today. I think he rivals a lot of the mainstream artists. There are times where I pick up books from Marvel and DC, and I kind of look at them and I go, this isn't as good as what my artist draws. No knock, I love Marvel and DC, but some of their lower tier books, sometimes I'm like, I think Dennis is better than these guys. So I'm always afraid they're going to snatch him up. So I feel like I should use him as much as I can before they get to that. Because once Marvel comes knocking on your door, you're not drawing for me anymore. But the other thing I'll say is that Dennis and I have really developed this great working relationship where I can give him a fairly minimal script, which is the way I like to write. I like to write a lot of dialogue, but very minimal panel descriptions. And he not only can he translate it into a really good visual, he does so much better than I could picture in my head. So I'm like, why am I going to tell him like panel 2 medium shot when I just say panel 2 this character's talking, and he decides if it's a medium shot, a long shot, a close up, whatever, and it always looks better than what I picture in my head. So we've got such a good shorthand and a good working relationship that I'm like, I don't want to go through learning that all over again with somebody new. If I don't have to. Eventually I'll work with other artists, I'm sure. But right now I love his artwork. He's easy for me to work with, and I think his style fits my books. So yeah, as long as he's working at my level, I'll keep coming back to him.
And how have you, I'm sure, you've kind of progressed as a writer throughout your different projects. Have you noticed anything with this one that you maybe didn't with Uncaped or Red, White, and Broke?
Yeah, this was a different experience for me. Red, White, and Broke and Uncaped were both superhero comedies. I mean, they're very different plots, but like I kind of knew the tone of the book and the beats kind of pretty early on. With this one, I'm never gonna write a full-on serious story with no humor. Like that's just not my style. I don't think I'm capable of it. But I was definitely a little bit like, okay, how do I translate a slasher, very movie focused kind of archetype into comic books and make it work. I've seen them done before, and some of them I've read that are fine, and some of them I've read are not so good. So how do I do that? And I think for me, as far as growth as a writer, I think what I was, if I may say, I was proud of. I felt very like brave, kind of is I guess the best word for writing this book, in that like I didn't know how it was going to work out. I wasn't sure how I was going to translate it, and I wanted to make sure like there was enough action and enough, but also enough character development. And I just kind of sat down and wrote it, and I wasn't really worried about it. I felt like I had enough confidence in my writing skills to be able to say like, okay, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out as I go. And I mapped it out and I wrote out an outline, a little more than I usually do even. And then I started the scripting and everything, and the whole process, I felt like, all right, this is coming together. I feel like I'm doing something good here. I wasn't like, oh no, I messed this up, or what if I do this terrible, or something like that. So I think that was a big progression for me, was kind of tackling a new genre, but not being afraid of it. You know what I mean?
Okay. So tell me a little bit about the Kickstarter itself.
Sure, happy to. So the Kickstarter is running right now through March 28th. It is so, like I said, all of my books now are 48-page square-bound graphic novels that are printed on premium paper with cardstock covers. Like when you pick up one of my books, right? I'll just put it on camera for a minute. Like it feels like a real graphic novel. It's kind of hard to see how thick it is here, but it's like got the square binding. Like I said, the thick covers. You get the beautiful colors inside. Like, you know, I brag about my books. I'm not going to lie, because I honestly think that you can hold up my comics against any other indie comic at any convention, and mine are going to look as good, if not better. I think they look better than a lot of other indie comics. They're really high quality, and I use a really good printer and stuff like that. So that being said, there's different options. You can, you know, for the just the readers, you've got the digital copy at $10, or the main cover copy at $12, right? Then I did 4 different variant covers that are cost a little bit more. They're $16. There's an homage cover to the Friday the 13th video game, which people are like, there's a huge cult following around that game. There's an homage cover to Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. There's a cover by Ryan Gary Brown, who is one of the premier cover artists working in comics today. He's done covers for Ninja Turtles and G.I. Joe and He-Man and Thundercats and Usagi Yojimbo, and you name it, he's done covers for it. So he did a cover for me. And then there's an artist edition version of Ryan Brown's cover, which is like a black and white one, but I kind of tried to mirror those like artist edition books where it's actually got like his notes and stuff around the borders and everything. So it's like kind of owning a piece of his artwork, just slightly smaller. So those are the various covers. You can pick any one you want. You can add on if you want like 2 of them or 3 of them. There's like a 5 cover set. And then, because I know there's always new people coming to the Kickstarter, I have a couple different options for if you want to get the whole Out of Time Comics library, which is everything that I've written that Dennis has drawn that we've done, which is the Red, White, and Broke 100-page graphic novel, Uncaped, which is 48 pages, and the 8-bit slasher, all in one package. There's a digital package, so you can get them all just digitally. There's a physical package, so you can get them all physically, like, you know, printed copies, or a digital and physical where you get both, because some people like to do that. And there's some various add-ons and things like that as well. But those are the kind of the main tiers. So it's a little something for everyone, but I tried to keep it pretty simple this time. I think this is the least amount of tiers I've had in the Kickstarter in quite some time. but there's still a good amount. But I've definitely had a couple campaigns where I'm a little bit crazy with the reward tiers. So I toned it back down a little bit this time.
Okay, well, so I know it's kind of early on in the campaign, you know, the first couple weeks. But have you noticed anything that with things going maybe a little, you know, different this time? Because a lot of people that I've talked to recently saying, you know, their experience, you know, they're like you like yourself, they've done Kickstarters in the past, and you know, they're it's either trouble getting traction or people kind of pledging and then pulling pledges back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the realities of Kickstarter. I haven't had any canceled pledges yet, luckily, knock on wood. I will say, while
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
No, I was going to cancel mine.
I will say that we are a little slower this time around than we have been in the past campaigns at this point in the campaign. We're on track to fund. I think we're going to fund. We haven't ever not funded a campaign, but definitely it's a little bit slower, a few less backers than I expected to have at this point. As you mentioned, I've done a few interview shows recently, and one of the things I've been hearing a lot, like you, is from other creators who are saying, like, Kickstarter seems a little slow right now. Comic sales in general seem a little slow right now. I don't know if it's the economy or, you know, what, but it does seem like it's a little bit slower than usual. Not so much that I'm worried about the campaign, but enough so that, like, if people watching this want to go and pledge right now, I'm not going to argue with them. You know what I mean? Whenever you watch this, if you want to go and pledge on it, that would certainly be a very welcome thing. So I think we'll get there, but it's probably going to get down to the wire a little bit more than I would like. But again, that's the realities of Kickstarter. You know, sometimes they fund right away, and sometimes they take a while.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anything else you want to say about the campaign before we move on? I'll give you a chance at the end to come back and kind of give your last little pitch and stuff like that.
Right. I guess the one thing I'd say is, you know, it's one thing I've kind of been a little bit aware of, I guess, or kind of conscious of is, it is a horror book, it's a slasher book, but it's a fun book. I liken it to like a PG-13. I love slasher films, but I don't actually like gory movies. So like I'm very kind of picky sometimes. Like the gorier you make your slasher, the less I'm gonna probably like it. So this book is kind of like a PG-13. There's enough death scenes in it that I think that the slasher fans will like it and get a kick out of it. But there's no pages with like eyeballs popping out or entrails everywhere. Like they're fairly clean kills, if you will, enough to be like, ooh, visceral, like that guy just got a machete to the chest, but not enough that it's like, ooh, gosh, why am I, like, I think again, I would.
Dr. Worthing wouldn't clutch his pearls and stuff.
Right, exactly. I wouldn't show it to little kids, but I think like teenagers, like 13 and up would be fine reading this book. So I just like to kind of get that out there, that people aren't like, oh, well, this looks fun, but I've got a 15-year-old at home and it looks too intense for me. It's not that. It's not gross, at least. I think it's an intense book in terms of like being a good suspenseful story, but it's not like that you're not going to have to worry about there just being blood and guts every page that you turn. It's relatively restrained in that respect. So that's the one thing I would say about it.
Okay, well, like I said, we'll come back in a few minutes and let you give one more pitch and say anything else you want to. But now, would you like to play 5 questions?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Hit me.
First question. Let's test your 8-bit knowledge.
Okay.
Oh, did you see the shirt I'm wearing, by the way?
Yeah, I haven't been able to make all of it, but I've been picking up on that. It's
Mario Brothers.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I love Mario Party. All right. Okay. 8. All right. Okay. 8-bit question. Okay. I wasn't expecting that. I thought you were going a different direction. So let's see how I do. Hit me.
Some of them are
okay
related to 8-bit stuff. And so, all right, name the 5 Nintendo accessories that there were in the games, if you can.
You mean the original games, like Nintendo?
Yes, the original Nintendo.
Okay, so like the light gun would be one, right?
Okay, the Zapper, yes.
That count the Zapper, okay.
Games.
There's Duck Hunt and Super Mario Brothers, which I believe came both with the. Didn't they both come with the Nintendo in the original, or it's just Duck Hunt?
Some of them came together, yeah.
Okay, all right. Let me think. Obviously, controllers, right?
No, we're not gonna.
Okay. Gosh.
The other Zapper gun was Hogan's Alley.
Okay, I remember that. Yep. I don't know, man. That's about all I got for that. Now you're going to tell me I'm going to go, oh, right, of course, but I'm blanking at the moment.
Rob the Robot.
Oh, my gosh. Holy cow. I forgot about that. Yes. Yeah, you're right. Wow. That's a deep cut. All right.
Stack Up and Gyromite. Stack Up and Gyromite. The only 2 games for it.
Wow. Okay.
The Power Glove.
Power Glove. Okay. I remember that, but I wasn't sure because that was a separate thing. So I wasn't sure if that counted or not. But yeah. Okay. All right.
Do you remember the movie that they used to launch the Power Glove? You're a big movie person.
I am. Hang on. I do remember it. I feel like I want to say it was the Wizard, but I don't.
Yes, it was.
Correct.
Yep.
The Wizard. Taking full points for that then.
Who did it star?
Fred Savage, of course.
That's right. Yep.
No, that one I know. The movie stuff I'm going to get more than the video game stuff. I loved the video games, but I was never like the video game guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But all right, what else you got?
The Power Pad.
The Power what?
The Power Pad, the track and field thing where you could supposedly it was the you should be exercising while you're playing games.
I'll be honest with you. That's like a vague recollection for me. Like I remembered enough to go like, okay, yeah, you're not making that up. But boy, I could not have pulled that out to save my life. That's like very deep recesses of my memory. So
yeah. Then the other ones I pulled were the NES Advantage, which was like the joystick with the turbo and the slow-mo.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that. That felt cheating a little bit, but yeah.
Yes, it was. And then the Game Genie, which is really cheating.
Game Genie. Yeah, I remember that. Wow.
Okay.
All right.
Should we test to see how well you know
so I did
some of your... You did okay. Should we test to see how well you know some of your video games?
Yes, we shall. Let's see how I do here. It depends on the era. So that's, I have my
Okay.
areas of expertise. So let's see what you got. All right.
This game revolved around for the protagonist's quest for the three sacred treasures, which he must equip to rescue the Greek-inspired fantasy world Angel Land. He was also on the cartoon.
Okay. Uh,
Don't fly too close to the sun.
ooh. Well, that's yes. Kid Icarus.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. All right. That's why I remember that game existing, but I never played it. You know what? Here's the thing I'll say. I had Nintendo, but I never had any extra money to buy games with. I had very few games.
Mm,
So like I know there's a lot of games out there that were super popular, like Legend of Zelda, for example. Never played Legend of Zelda. Like just I
okay.
never had the game. So like I'm familiar with it, you know what I mean? But I'm not like super in depth. But all right, okay. So Kid Icarus,
Okay.
I got that one with a hint. We'll get half credit for that. All right, what else you got?
All right. So this is a vertical scrolling game where you play
Okay.
the role of a spy driving in an armored sports car.
Yes. This one I know. This was, I want to make sure I get the name right. Was it Spy Hunter?
Yes. Ding ding ding.
All right. Yeah. That one I got. Yep. All right. All right. That one I knew for sure. Okay, good. All right. I redeemed myself a little bit with that one.
All right. One more. It's a series of top-down, third-person mazes where your object is to kill monsters, gather treasures, and get to the exits. There were four players that you could choose from.
Are we
So
talking Nintendo here or different?
yeah, yeah. The players were the barbarian, the wizard, the elf, and the Valkyrie.
Oh, oh my God. Yes. I love that game. Oh, God, don't tell me. Don't tell me. Oh my gosh. Was it? I feel like I'm wrong on this. It wasn't called Gauntlet, was it?
Yes,
It was
it
Gauntlet.
was. Yes.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a deep cut too. I forgot about that one. I haven't thought about the game that came in forever, but that's a good one. All right, like you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty proud of myself for getting that one. That was definitely like I said, that was definitely like the recesses of the memory, but I pulled it out. I forgot. I love that game. Holy cow. Good one. Good one. Gauntlet. Yeah, man. That was all I spent some hours on that game.
So what were your I mean, as you said, you didn't have very many access to very many, but what were your top games?
So for me, Ninja Gaiden was a big one. I
Hmm.
remember that where you're running as the ninja, you jump on the walls, get the little ninja throwing
Hmm.
stars. That was a big, huge amount of my time. Um, I did play a lot of Super Mario Brothers, the original. Super Mario Brothers 2 is one of my favorite video games of all time. Love that one. I love going in the different worlds and hopping on the little turnips and pulling them up and all that stuff. I love Super Mario Brothers 2. What else? What else did I play? Gosh. Well, Gauntlet. Which I would
Hmm.
never remembered, but that was definitely one of them. I know I played more than that. I never played some of the big ones. Like I never played Metroid. I never played Legend of Zelda. Some of those things that are kind of like legendary games. I just never,
Hmm.
got them. So I'm not that I was like a deprived kid or anything like that. But we're on a budget. My family was on a budget, and so I got
So
a
were we? Yeah.
I get a game for my birthday and one for the holidays, maybe, and that was kind of it. So, and then we could occasionally rent them, but so I don't know. Those are the ones I remember the most.
Okay.
Yeah,
So do you know what the Nintendo company did before they started making video games?
I am pretty sure I do know that they started off as a playing card company. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, look
Yep.
at me. All right. See, I know a thing or two. I know a thing or two.
The other, I'll just tell you the other games I picked out because
Sure.
they're super deep cuts.
Okay.
River City Ransom, which
I
was
know the name, but I don't think I ever played it.
yeah, and then did you ever play Bionic Commando? It's where the guy had like the grappling hook and
Yes, I did. I don't think I played it extensively, but I definitely played it, a good handful of times for sure. I do remember that one.
and because it was the 80s and they were trying to get us kids, to get into the Cold War. There was always Russian attack.
Yeah, right. Yeah, a little indoctrination through
Yeah.
Nintendo.
All right. At least led to some good discussion. So what are your top five slasher movies?
Oh, that's a
Being a
good one.
movie guy.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great question. Okay, let's see. So I should probably count down top for like 5 to 1, but I was not prepared for this. This is an off-the-cuff question, so I'm going to do it kind of as they come to me. First one, hands down, no question about it. Halloween, the original
Mm.
John Carpenter classic. It's my favorite horror movie of all time. It's one of my absolute favorite movies of all time. It's the one that got me into horror movies and got me into slasher films. Michael Myers is the greatest slasher of all, and of all the franchises, Halloween is hands down my favorite. I'm obsessed with the Halloween movies. I've watched them over and over and over again. My second favorite slasher film would definitely be the original Scream. I love Scream so much. It's so clever. It's so funny. And what I really like about it is that it manages to be an effective slasher film while also completely deconstructing the slasher genre. And that's hard to pull off because you can usually do one or the other. Doing them both, having the comedy and the deconstruction while still being scary and still being effective as a slasher film, genius as far as I'm concerned. So I love Scream. Let me think. I think my next one would have to be going back to the well, Halloween H2O. I'm a big fan of H2O. I really like how it got back to the basics of Halloween. The thing with the Halloween movies is like the first one's amazing, but the thing people forget is in the first one, it's a really low body count. There's almost no blood. And then, of course, because it was the 80s after the first one, then they made them gorier and gorier, right? But then Halloween came out 20 years later, or H2O came out 20 years later, and they got kind of back to the original feel of it. There's only a few people get killed. There's a little bit more blood, but not a ton. It's not very gory, and I really love that about it. And it brought back Jamie Lee Curtis after she'd been gone since the second movie. So really, really love that one. I think that's a great film. Let's see. Next would probably be Friday. I'm trying to think which Friday the 13th I would probably put up there. There's a lot of them that I like. I think 4 and 6 are my favorites, and sometimes I forget which one is which. I know the horror fans out there are like, "Duh, 4 is this one and 6 is this one," but I think 4 and 6 are two of the best entries. So we'll call that one a tie between Friday the 13th 4 and Friday the 13th 6. And then I'll throw a curveball in for my number 5. Is a movie called Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. It's a bit of a sleeper cult classic because not many people have seen it. Not as many people have seen it as should have, but it's a really fantastic movie. It's like a slasher mockumentary, if you will, and it follows this masked killer named Leslie Vernon, but it actually follows him around. He actually does mockumentary style interviews, so he'll explain the whole thing. He's like, well, here's my strategy when I'm chasing them. I don't need to run because they're going to trip on a route and then not be able to get up. So I can take my time. And it's all, again, it's sort of deconstructing the slasher genre, but it's so well done. And the character is so good. It's a really, really fun movie that not enough people have seen. So that's one I like to recommend, but also introduce people to. It's called Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. If you can track it down, it's highly worth watching. So off the top of my head, I would say those are my top 5 slasher films.
Okay. Question 3.56. Who would you put on your comic industry Mount Rushmore?
We talking any type, like writer, artist, things like that, or
Any type.
anything?
Any type.
Creator. Okay. Well, number one, hands down, is always going to be Jim Lee. I'm a Jim Lee fan through and through. He's been my favorite artist for 30 plus years. I buy anything he puts his name on. So Jim Lee is going to be my number 1 on the Mount Rushmore, without a doubt. I think my number 2 would probably have to be Peter David, the writer. He's again been one of my favorite writers for years and years. I think his Incredible Hulk run, which was 12 years long, is one of the greatest things of all time for such a long run. And when I tell people, people ask you what's your favorite comic story ever? I've read thousands and tens of thousands of comics at this point in my life, but there's never any hesitation for me. My favorite comic book story of all time is called The Death of Jean DeWolf. It was a 4-part series in Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. It's the comics that really got me into Spider-Man. I reread it probably once a year. And every time I reread it, I am in awe of how good it is and how amazing the story is written, and the artwork is great too, but it is just, to me, the perfect comic book story, and Peter David wrote that. So in addition to everything else he's written over his career that I love, he also wrote my very favorite comic book story of all time. So Jim Lee and Peter David would be up there. I think I would probably have to include John Byrne as well, for, I mean, what he did with being the artist on the X-Men with Chris Claremont, and then also writing and drawing Fantastic Four. And I mean, those are two of the defining and best runs of both of those series. Is amazing. And I love his artwork and I love his writing. I mean, I've read so many comics he's written outside of X-Men and Fantastic Four that I've really enjoyed. And I always love when he draws things. So I think I'd have to put John Byrne up there. And then, again, slight curveball, but I have to go with Terry Moore, creator of Strangers in Paradise. Strangers in Paradise is one of the best things I've ever read. It was like 90 issues long, and it holds a very special place in my heart. Terry is a super nice guy, and I think his artwork is just beyond gorgeous. Like every time he posts any kind of sketch or drawing or cover or anything, I'm just in awe of his artistic talent. He just draws the most beautiful people ever, but he's also a great storyteller, and he can work humor into his artwork and his storytelling, which I love. So I think I have to put him up there. And I will say I had a nice moment actually just yesterday. He tweeted out my link for the 8-bit slasher, and he called me his pal. He said, my pal Mike was running this campaign. And I was like, well, I guess I can die happy now. Because Terry considers me his pal. We've met at a bunch of conventions. I run into him every time I see him at a convention. I go talk to him. Like, he definitely recognizes me. I'm not saying we're friends, but apparently we're pals, and I will take that. So I think there's a lot of other creators that I love. I mean, this list could change maybe a little bit, although I don't think Jim Lee or Peter David would go anywhere. Maybe I got a different day. I might pick somebody else besides John Byrne or Terry Moore, but I think those are pretty solid choices for me.
All right. I was going to ask you if you were just picking Terry Moore because he hosted your.
I mean, maybe there's a little bit of bias there, but honestly, even before that, I probably would have put him up there. He's just, I've been reading his comics since the 90s. And like I said, Strangers in Paradise to me is one of the greatest comic book works of all time. It's an amazing comic filled with romance and humor and also suspense and danger. Like you'd think it's just a romance comic, but it has this whole kind of like blackmail and intrigue and spying kind of thing going on in the background. And I just think it's like nothing else out there. And that to me is pretty impressive, pretty special.
Okay. Let's see. I guess we're on question 4. I've lost count, but we'll just keep going.
It's just like a name more than like a rule. You know what I mean? I mean, it is an interview show, so you really get as many questions as you want.
So, all right. Marvel or DC approaches you and they say you can take any C or D list character and do whatever you want with it. Who are you taking?
That's a really great question. Okay, so DC would have to be Martian Manhunter. I love Martian Manhunter, but I like the middle school. That sounds weird. Not the old school Martian Manhunter from like the 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that they're doing it them these days. They made him this like weird looking, super serious Martian. I like him from like the 80s, from like the Giffen and McGuire Justice League, where he was like, he loved Oreos and he was a private detective, but he had a sense of humor, but he was also kind of curious about the world, and he was such a great personality, but he also has these cool powers. Now everyone just tries to make him this like grim, dark character, and I think that just ruins him. So I want to go back to the Oreo loving Martian Manhunter. So I think he would be my first choice, although I also really always liked Red Tornado. I would love to do something cool with Red Tornado. So those would be my 2 DC choices. Marvel, I guess the question is what makes a B character for Marvel, right? Because I'm trying to think, like,
they had a movie.
Right. Well, that's I would say like I love Gambit, but I think he's too much of an A-list character. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of somebody more B-list or C-list even. C-list or D. Who would I? I think there's a movie maybe in the future. I don't know. I just have predictions about this. Silver Sable from the Spider-Man universe, I always thought was a really cool character that I felt like they never was able to figure out what to do with her outside of the Spider-Man books. Like, she's kind of like this, she's from like this small country. She's like this super great like mercenary / spy, kind of like, I guess, like a B grade Black Widow, but a little bit less altruistic. Like she'll do jobs for the money, and I think that's kind of an interesting idea with her. So I might want to do something with her. Who else? Is anybody else? Gosh. Yeah, I mean, I think that might be my choice. Yeah. Oh, that's a good. Marvel's got so many characters. I'm blanking on even just thinking of them sometimes. You know what I mean? There's just so many, and so many of them now. They made movies out of that. I'm kind of like, well, who's a C-list character at this point? Even, so I guess I go Silver Sable then. I don't have a better answer than that. So
Okay,
I'll think of it tomorrow. Oh, that's who I should have said. But for now, I'll stick with her.
all right, and last one is what if anything are you currently reading, comics or
Yeah.
novels that you would recommend?
Man, so many books. I went to the comic store today, and like the pile I brought home is like 5 inches thick. I buy way too many comics, man. It's not even funny. And then people ask me like, "What are you reading?" And I go, "I can't think of a single thing," even though I've just bought 57 comics. So what am I reading these days that I'm enjoying? A lot of stuff. So, okay. So I'm going to mention a couple of horror books, which I don't normally do. I don't always love horror comics, but there's Scott Snyder has a book from IDW called The Dungeon. It's only got, I think, 3 issues out so far, but man, it is one of the creepiest things I've ever read in my entire life, and it is so good. It's so intense. I don't even want to tell you what it's about because I don't want to spoil anything. But it's kind of about this sort of serial killer who puts people in dungeons. It is amazing, though. I really, really like that. And then James Tynion has a horror book called The Deviant, which kind of deals with like it's got a couple things going on in it. It's got a writer who's interviewing a guy who is accused of being a serial killer who is not really that killer, but now this guy may or may not be being inspired by him, but not in the way that you'd think. But that's been really intriguing so far. I've really enjoyed that one. So those are some horror picks, which I don't normally do. Mark Russell, who is a great writer and a friend of the show, I believe. And I'm happy to say that I'm friends with him actually too.
He called me a comic journalist.
What's that?
I said in an email, he was introducing me to somebody. He called me a comic journalist.
There you go. You gotta love that. Exactly. He's got 1 issue left that I can't wait for. This book called Traveling to Mars. Man,
yes.
Have you read it? Yeah, it's so good.
Oh,
right?
yes, yeah.
I'm really enjoying that. It's kind of a satirical science fiction with a message type of book, but man, it's really fantastic. It's 11 issues. I think there's 1 left to come out.
Yep.
So that's been really good. I am really liking the new Ultimate Spider-Man. I know it's been getting a lot of buzz, a lot of heat, so this is not like a hot take, but I read the first 2 issues and I really do like it. Which surprises me. I'm not a huge Jonathan Hickman fan. But I feel like he's reining himself in with this a little bit, so I'm enjoying that a lot. What else? Gosh, I wish I had my stack of comics with me. I could go through it and be like, "Oh, this is really good." Yeah, that's what I got off the top of my head. I might think of some others. I'll throw them at you, but those are some good ones that I recommend.
Okay. Well, I guess we're at the part of the show where you get to give one final pitch of the book and your campaign and where people can find you and if you're going to be at any shows coming up, they can
Yeah,
find
absolutely.
you there.
Yeah, I got all that stuff. So the 8-Bit Slasher, it's on Kickstarter right now through March 28th. It's a lot of fun. It is a complete story, so you can just buy the one book and you read it and enjoy it, and you don't have to wait 6 months for a follow-up issue or the cliffhanger to be resolved or anything like that. You can find it on Kickstarter by searching for me, Mike Spring, or searching for the 8-Bit Slasher, or you can go to tinyurl.com/8-bit slasher. Which gets a little confusing with the slash, but you know what I mean. You can also, though, if you can't remember that, you can find me on any of your social channels with just at Out of Time Comics, and that's kind of spelled like that. If you can see it on the screen, if you're watching, it's OUTTA time, all one word, Out of Time Comics. So Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all of those you can find Out of Time Comics, and on all of them you will find links to the campaign, so it's easy to track down. Also, you can visit us at outoftimecomics.com. Although I'll be honest, I don't update that as much as I should. But yeah, so you can check any of those out. I would love it if people would give a look at the campaign. My ask is always this: just go and visit the Kickstarter page. If it's not your thing and you don't feel like pledging on it, no hard feelings. I totally understand that. I've looked at a million Kickstarters I haven't pledged on, even though I've pledged on a lot because I'm a Kickstarter fanatic. But at least take a look at it. And then if you do like something and you want to pledge, that's even better. But if you don't, at least you can say, hey, I gave it a shot, and then if it just wasn't my flavor, I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? So that's what I ask, is if people give it a chance, just try taking a look at it. And then you can decide for yourself if it looks like a project that's worth spending your hard-earned money on. And I'm totally fine with that.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time again, and you can find 8-Bit Slasher and other great projects every Saturday on Comic Watch's crowdfunding corner.
That's right. That's right.
And
yeah. Love crowdfunding.
Yeah, but yeah, and thank you for taking the time to chat, and it's always a fun, and we'll have to see how New York City works out this year.
I hope better. We missed you last year, man. It was a really good time, but it would have been more fun with you there. We definitely were talking about you while you weren't there. Going, Chad would have enjoyed this. But to be fair, you had a broken foot. Like Russ and I were just talking about this the other day. One of our friends who goes with us saying, like, it wasn't like Chad bailed because he just was being a flake. Like, you had a broken foot. Like, you can't walk around New York Comic Con on a broken foot, man. That would have sucked. So but hopefully you'll be able to make it this year, and then we can have some more shows talking about that and sharing some of our adventures. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. We want you there.
Definitely always a fun time to have you on the show, hanging out with you, seeing your shows, and
yeah, absolutely.
We'll have to do more of it on a more regular basis, even when you don't have
I'm always happy to come on and talk about comics. Whatever you want to talk about, I'm happy to do. It doesn't have to be about my comics. You know what I mean? If you want to jam about something that's happening in the comics world, I'm always willing.
I know you're a great last minute host sometimes.
Yeah,
or co-host.
How I feel about how that sounds, but I'll take it, I guess. No, definitely. That's
all right. Well, good luck. We'll keep helping you plug your campaign, even if Facebook won't let you.
Yeah, I've had run into some issues with Facebook jail for sharing links when they want you to pay for advertisements, but hopefully that's almost over. So yeah, but no, thank you for supporting it. Thanks for having me on. As always my pleasure to come on and chat with you and hang out with you. So thank you for everything.
All right, we'll be in touch.
All right, sounds good. Thanks a lot.